Welcome back. Boy, hasn't this share-a-thon been exciting? Let me do some adjusting. Just a second. See if we can make a better picture here. Okay. My name's Donette Douglas, and I'm the program director at Christ Vision. And I'm setting up in the video room. I have had a sinus cold since the share-a-thon. In fact, I got it last Friday. And I thought I left some music running. Excuse me. And I've not been able to talk. It's been very hard on me. But I did want to share with you tonight some things. First of all, the phone has not rung much tonight. And I want to show you what will happen if money does not come in to Christ Vision. This is what you will have. I don't know about you, but that makes me sad. You see, Channel 13, when we are not on live, we switch a button and we bring inspirational TV to you. You watch John Hagee, you watch Dr. Stanley, you watch Kenneth Copeland, you watch James Robertson. But if Christ Vision does not have money to pay their power bill, this is what you will have. Last month, when we had our board meeting, we had $15 income. That does not pay many bills. I'm being very serious with you because I have a heart for lost souls. We here in Keokuk and Hamilton and Warsaw, Montrose, little towns around that get Channel 13 and K60, we need to have a burden for lost souls. We have people living next door to us in our own homes who are lost. And the Bible tells us the day comes when we will all kneel before God and be judged. Now, where do you choose to go? Where do you choose to go? God asks us to give. This money is God's. Our time is God's. He's allowed us to have a free will to choose to use as we will, but it's God's. And I want to share with you a story and read a scripture from Mark out of a book written by Corrie Ten Boom, Tramp for the Lord. I want to share this with you, and then I want you to think about what you're doing for God. Mark 12:42 through 44. And there came a certain poor widow, and she threw in 2 mites. And he said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that this poor widow hath cast more in than all they which have cast into the treasury. For all they did cast in of their abundance. But she of her want did cast in all that she had, even all her living. And I want to read this short story to you that's called One Finger for His Glory. This is in Corrie Ten Boom's book, and she was going to Russia. We arrived at her apartment by night in order to escape detection. We were in Russia. Ellen and I had climbed the steep stairs, coming through a small back door into the one-room apartment. It was jammed with furniture, evident that the old couple had once lived in a much larger and much finer house. The old woman was lying on a small sofa, propped up by pillows. Her body was bent and twisted almost beyond recognition by the dread disease of multiple sclerosis. Her aged husband spent all his time caring for her since she was unable to move off the sofa. I walked across the room and kissed her wrinkled cheek. She tried to look up, but the muscles in her neck were atrophic, so she could only roll her eyes upward and smile. She raised her right hand slowly in jerks. It was the only part of her body she could control, and with her gnarled and deformed knuckles she caressed my face. I reached over and kissed the index finger of that hand, for it was with this one finger that she had so long glorified God. Beside her couch was a vintage typewriter. Each morning her faithful husband would rise, praising the Lord. After caring for his wife's needs and feeding her a simple breakfast, he would prop her into a sitting position on the couch, placing pillows all around her so she wouldn't tumble over. Then he would move that ancient black typewriter in front of her on a small table. From an old cupboard he would remove a stack of cheap yellow paper. Then with that blessed one finger she would begin to type. All day and far into the night she would type. She translated Christian books into Russian, the language of her people, always using just that one finger. Peck, 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 she typed out the pages. Portions of the Bible, the books of Billy Graham and Corrie Ten Boom, all came from her typewriter. That was why I was there to thank her. She was hungry to hear news about these men of God she had never met, yet whose books she had so faithfully translated. We talked about Watchman Nee, who was then in a prison in China, and I told her all I knew of his life and ministry. I also told her the wonderful ministry of Billy Graham and of the many people who were giving their lives to the Lord. Not only does she translate their books, her husband said, as he hovered close by during her conversation, but she prays for these men every day while she types. Sometimes it takes a long time for her finger to hit the key, or for her to get the paper in the machine. But all the time she is praying for those whose books she is working on. I looked at her wasted form on the sofa, her head pulled down and her feet curled back under her body. "Oh, Lord, why don't you heal her?" I cried inwardly. Her husband, sensing my anguish of soul, gave the answer. God has a purpose in her sickness. Every other Christian in the city is watched by the secret police. But because she has been sick so long, no one ever looks in on her. They leave us alone, and she is the only person in all the city who can type quietly, undetected by the police. I looked around at the tiny room, so jammed full of furniture from better days. In one corner was the kitchen. Beside the cupboard was her husband's office, a battered desk where he sorted the pages that came from her typewriter to pass them on to the Christians. I thought of Jesus sitting over against the treasury, and my heart leaped for joy as I heard Jesus bless this sick old woman who, like the widow, had given all she had. What a warrior! When she enters the beautiful city and the saved all around her appear, many people around will tell her, "It was you that invited me here." Ellen and I returned to Holland, where we were able to obtain a new typewriter and have it shipped to her. Now she could make carbon copies of her translations. Today we got a letter from her husband. In the early morning hours last week, she left to be with the Lord. But he said she had worked up until midnight that same night, typing with that one finger to the glory of God. Now I ask you, what are you doing for God? God gave his Son. This ministry at Christ Vision is God's. It's not Donette's. It's not the board's. It's God's. And we need Christian people to stand behind us and support us in prayer, volunteering their time and financial support. I'm asking you tonight to listen to God. I know God has spoke to many people in Keokuk, and they have not done what God's asked. I have walked with the Lord for 32 years. I myself have failed to answer His call sometimes, and I have learned that I miss out on a blessing from God. If you want to grow closer to God, if you want to serve God, right now I ask you to pray and ask God what you can do to help us bring the message here in Keokuk. Thank you.